Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, that is Science Unlocked, and in today's session we are going to continue with our series of class 7th science NCERT textbook, and the chapter that we are taking today is motion and time. So the very first thing that we have is, what do we exactly mean by motion? Now, motion is actually very much related with time, because whenever we talk about any kind of motion, it will always be going to be with respect to change in time. That means when we talk about like any definition related with motion, we will going to hear and we will going to see that it will be going to having some terms related with time. So the very basic definition that we have is that motion is the change in the position of an object with respect to time. That means if the time is changing, time is moving ahead, then as per that, the object that we are observing or that is under experimentation is also changing its overall position with respect to the previous position. Now what happens is that if there is no change in the body or the position of the body, in that case the object is considered as rest or motionless or stationary. So we can simply say that any object or any moving body is simply considered to be said as to be in motion. Now, one thing which is very much important with reference to motion is that it is most of the time based on the concept of frame of reference. Now, what do we exactly mean by this phenomena? That is, if we observe this particular picture, we can say that this person in the red dress and the person in the yellow dress, they both have different frame of references. That means their perseverance is different for the particular situation. That means if we are talking about the condition of red colored person, in that condition we will going to say the person is moving as this particular trolley or the cart is also moving. Now what happens is this particular situation is actually with reference to the yellow person, but over here the red person is actually standing, it is not moving. It is standing inside a moving trolley. That is why it will going to appear to the yellow person that the trolley is moving. Now similar kind of condition can be related with the aspect that whenever we are moving in any object or any vehicle, we will going to realize and we will going to have this illusion in our mind that the stationary objects around us are not stationary, they are also moving with us and they are moving in the opposite direction. But the reality is something different. The trees never move, but whenever you are moving in a vehicle, we will going to have this experience that as if trees or stationary objects are moving in the opposite direction. So that is what called as the frame of reference. Now the next part that we have is the oscillatory motion. Now this is a kind of motion that we have not discussed before. We have discussed a little part of it but not the whole of it. So over here what we have is that it is actually a kind of motion where a body will going to move in two extreme conditions, that is the extreme left and extreme rights, and there will going to be a center to these extreme positions which will be called as the mean position. So if we talk about this pendulum over here, this is the central position which will be called as the mean position, and the extreme left position and extreme right position will be the two set of extreme positions that we are mentioning over here, that oscillatory motion is something which will going to move between two extreme positions. Now when we talk about that one oscillation is completed, that particular time duration is actually known as time period. That means how much time is it taking altogether to complete one oscillation. That thing is known as the time period. Now whenever it happens that an oscillation will going to repeat itself in equal intervals of time, then it is called as the periodic motion. So over here we can say this thing, that all the periodic motion cannot be an oscillatory motion, but all the oscillatory motion will going to be periodic in nature automatically. For example, this movement of pendulum or this clock over here we will going to realize that this is an oscillatory motion at the first place, but because the time duration is fixed, it is equal intervals of time and the overall motion repetition is same, then in that case it is a periodic motion too. But there are some other periodic motions. For example, revolution of earth. Now that is something which will going to takes place in a specific duration of days, or you can say hours, or overall year altogether, but that thing cannot be considered as the oscillatory motion. But there are certain oscillatory motion which will going to be, there are certain oscillatory motion which will be simply considered as the periodic motion. So the different examples we have quoted over here are these examples over where this thing is matching, that is the pendulum. So as per this thing we can simply say that this is the kind of motion where both the conditions are satisfied, that is it is going to be oscillatory, on the other hand it will going to be periodic as well. The next categorization of motion is on the basis of that how much distance an object is covering in a fixed interval of time. So on the basis of that there will be two kinds of motion, that is uniform and non-uniform, where the uniform motion is the motion where we will going to find out that the object is covering equal distances in equal intervals of time. On the other hand, the non-uniform one is the one where we will going to find out that the object is covering unequal distances in equal intervals of time. So over here one thing that is to be kept in mind is that the time interval will going to remain equal, because that is something which you cannot change even if you want to. The duration of 1 minute will always will going to be 60 seconds only. You cannot change the duration of 1 minute to 65 or 70 seconds or reduce it to 50 or 55 seconds. You cannot do that. So the time duration will going to remain constant. The only thing will going to change, or which can change, is the distance traveled by the object. So as in this example, it is observed that in first 2 seconds the object is covering 4 meters distance. In the next 2 seconds again it is traveling 4 meters of distance. In the next 2 seconds again it is traveling the 4 meter distance. So altogether we can say that this particular example is quoting the example of uniform motion. On the other hand, the next example that we have is the one which will going to be the example of non-uniform motion. Reason being, in the first 2 seconds it is covering 1 meter distance, next 2 seconds it is 10 meters overall, so there's a difference of 9 meters, and in the next 2 seconds it will going to be a difference of 15 meters. So every passage of time, or with every time duration that is increasing, the interval of time is constant, but the change in distance is not constant. So that kind of a motion is known as non-uniform motion. Now the next aspect related with motion is the speed, which is again a sort of a relative kind of a condition. Reason being, if something is moving in a speed and you want to say that one object is moving at a faster speed and the other object is moving at a slower speed, that means you have a relative observation. But something related with speed is this as well, that you can actually check it with reference to only one object as well, that how much object has moved altogether, or the distance has been covered by the object in a specific duration of time. So that is what exactly is the concept of speed. And whenever we talk about the speed of an object for a longer duration of time, we will going to find out the average speed of the object, where we talk about the total distance traveled by the object and the total duration of interval that has been taken by the object. So on the basis of this thing we have a formula of speed, and on the basis of which thing we have unit of speed as well, that is distance is measured in meters or kilometers depending on whether the numbers are higher, the magnitude is higher or smaller. Similarly, the time will going to be either in seconds or hours. So common units that we will going to observe is going to be meters per second or kilometers per hour. It will never ever going to be in plurals. The units are always written in the form of singular format only, and this is the formula for the speed, that is the total distance covered by the object divided by total time taken. So that is what is the aspect related with speed. The next thing that we have is the fast and slow speed, where I have already mentioned that it will going to be relative, where if we want to finalize that something is moving faster and the other thing is moving at a slower speed, then we need to have two objects in motion, where we will be having a relative understanding that one is moving at a faster speed and the other one is moving at a slower speed. That means the one which is moving faster, it is covering larger distances in same intervals of time. On the other hand, the one which is moving slower, that is actually covering the less distances in same interval of time. For example, bicycle and something which is like aeroplane. So in same intervals of time, they will going to travel different distances. So altogether we will say on the basis of that which object is moving faster and which one is slower. So this is all about the basic idea about the chapter, or you can say the very first part of the chapter, not the basic but the very first part of the chapter that we have completed. Rest we will going to continue in our next session. So till then, take care and carry on.